Everyone, welcome to Morning Minutes with myself, Michael Bergio. Mark Novak. Episode 222 is renting cool. I know that especially when it comes to first home buyers, where a lot of the time they're very, even if they're not going to live in a property, they just feel like it has to be the one they would live in. And a lot of people have that concept they're going to own where they live. Mark, is renting cool?
Renting is, you know what, you've got to be really careful with your money. And where the problem is it's a bit like, with lay-by. If you go lay-by and you actually miss out on picking up the item, paying high interest rate, actually, you know what a better comparison is? It's like a credit card, 55 days free. Yes, that's cool, but if you don't pay it off in the 55 days, you're screwed. So same thing with renting. It's cool, but if you are not actually doing something parallel with your money, you're always going to be on that merry-go-round, on that what does a rat run on the
mill. Ty, can you give us a thumbs up if you can hear us on Insta? I just don't have Mark's audio in Insta, so I'm just worried you can't hear.
I don't have you on Insta at all. Sorry, buddy.
Yes,
I can't see you.
Oh yeah, where are you?
I'll put a request through.
Yeah. Go. It's frozen. Wave. Sorry, go.
Anyway, let's kill Insta.
It's going.
Hang on. No, it started. So I think, guys, it's just really important that if you're going to be on that rental bus, if you're going to be on that rental cycle, that you just make sure that you are paralleling and doing something clever with your money. We did some comparisons. Can we do some comparisons, Michael, with renting or the difference between renting or owning? Because it's pretty close.
So if we're buying an $800,000 property, you're generally going to need, let's say you're going to have a loan of $700,000. So it's $700,000 times 0.035%. You're looking at a rental repayment, a loan repayment of about $500 a week, $470, $500, plus you're going to have at least $100 of outgoings that you don't have when you're renting. So let's just call it $550, $600. Now, you can generally rent a two-bedroom property for about $580 to $650. So it's really on par. So where this will help people with their understanding is, but even though the renting and mortgage is very similar of that renting and buying that $800,000 property, what isn't similar is you need generally an extra 20, 30 grand to buy it, or 40. And your income generally needs to be 20% higher as well with serviceability. Mark, and a lot of time, Mark, that's not easy to do. Like saving that 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand could be a couple of years away, and the market's going to go up 10%. So it's actually, you're going to be chasing a tail. And same with income. So
but what buyers have got to understand is they just won't subscribe. So a renter will just give up, play dead.
Yeah.
So they'll go into the rental cycle, they'll play dead on the buyer's cycle, and you don't have to play dead on the buyer's cycle. You can, like I know families of 4 or 5 that have been renting for 10 or 15 years, they should have just bought a 1-bedroom unit on the side.
Yes, and that's that point. Where if you can't get that 2-bedroom for $800, just put your money in the market. Get the money in the market. Buy what you can buy when you can buy it, because you always had that stigma on paying someone's mortgage. Well,
that's okay.
Yeah. And the reality is, it's not like you're paying that much more, because it's pretty even. I get it if the mortgage was $500 a week and the rental was $1,000 and you're really chipping away at it. But then again, it would be the same on your property. Your mortgage would be, say, $300 and you're getting $600. But correct. A lot of people, Mark, we've done that psychology where it hurts more to lose than the pleasure of winning. So focusing more on not owning it and renting it, because that's what people focus on more. If I said to you, you're going to come out even, a lot of people would still not do it because of the difference of hurting is far greater. So not renting it, it's very similar at the moment. So therefore, you can rent the property you love. and you feel that works for you, the two better, maybe with views or closer to the city or wherever you want to be, but put your money in the market. Because as you said, Mark, you get complacent and you stop looking at that buyer, you stop being the buyer, and a couple of years go past. Now, if you're having 5 or 10% growth in a suburb, that 800 property is then going to be 950, even harder to get. But at least if you bought that one better that was 500, now that's 600, at least you're going up with the market and you're protecting yourself.
Yeah, because I think as buyers, as when you're a tenant, you look at the cash in, cash out per year if you're going to be a tenant, cash out, cash in if you're going to be an owner occupier. And when you look at that cash position at the moment, presently with where rates are, it's actually like for like. Yeah. So it's very, very similar. Now, as a professional tenant, you've got to understand that you're missing out on capital growth. Now, the pessimists are always saying, well, there is no capital growth. But the reality is when you look back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 10 year on 10 year, it's generally double, and that's what it's always done. That's what a tenant is missing out on. That's what everyone's got to be really conscious about. So when you're talking to friends and family at the barbecue on a Sunday and everyone's talking about the benefits of renting and the benefits of owning, the cash flow position year by year, everyone's right. What the hell do I need to buy for? Go through all that if I can actually rent. But you're missing out on the capital growth. Now, a lot of people will have an excuse for missing out on the capital growth, and they say, I just can't get my 4 kids into a one-bedroom unit. That's why we rent a 4-bedroom house. We get it, we got it. But there is no reason why you can't parallel a little investment to get that capital growth while you live in your big house.
Sorry, I've just lost you on Insta.
Have you?
Yeah, all good. It was just the audio cut out. But I heard there's no reason why you can't parallel that investment. And that's what the point of this show is, to let people know that. And not to mention, Mark, when the property owned is an investment, it opens the doors for tax depreciation. It opens the doors for tax deductions with any maintenance repairs into that property. So there's great benefits there as well.
Yeah, so basically what people have got to realise is that you have the benefit, the Australian government lets you own one property, capital gains free. So basically, if you own a house or a unit or not a commercial property, but if you have a house or a unit, townhouse, and it doubles in value over a 10-year period, you have lived in it in that 10-year period, you don't have to pay tax on that gain. Different to a stock, different to any other investment in Australia. That's the beauty about property. So people have got to be conscious that, not only can I make a great investment that's going to double in 10 years, because that's what it's done the last 50 years, but that investment is going to be a capital gains free investment. And you are missing out, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant. It's great that you're a tenant. Please stay a tenant. Enjoy being a tenant. It's clever, but it's not clever if you haven't got a tax-free investment available to you that you're not utilising. So the message today, there's another good reason. And do you want to explain negative gearing?
Yeah, I just want to address what Luke said as well, like paying homeowner interest is dead money. I think, Luke, are you referring to it if you're the tenant? And if so, totally agree with you there. But the alternative, what the point of today is, the alternative is people are not buying. So they're renting anyway, but they don't have that investment because they can't buy what they want. So yes, that is dead money, but the alternative is you buy an investment and then you, in return, someone is paying that dead money for you and you've bought. So yes, there is that negative, but the positives weigh out that negative, especially when the alternative is they're not going to buy and they're renting anyway. So it was dead money. The difference is changing the mindset so they have an asset. Negative gearing. So in negative gearing is basically you look at the whole income for the property, maybe 20 grand a year versus the interest on the loan, all the outgoings and expenses, and that may be $25,000 a year. That means your property is negative with cash flow $5,000 a year, and then the benefit, because you may think, why is that good? That obviously sounds bad. The investment is costing me. The way and refer to your accountant for any specific information before you do anything. The benefit is that $5,000 will then come off your taxable income as a deduction. And that's where the benefit is. People, when you're playing the tax game, you're looking for deductions, because where that may help, let's say, for example, the tax threshold is $100,000, and if you're under $100,000, you pay 30%. If you're above $100,000, you pay 45%. Let's say your income was 110 with no deductions, it stays at 110. But let's say your property is $5,000 negative. Now that 110 goes to 105. Let's say you painted it and you did carpet, and that say it was six grand. Your 99,000 is your taxable income. So instead of getting taxed 30% at 45% at 110, you're now going to get taxed 30% at 96. It's far greater tax, less tax. Those figures were just round figures to make the equation easier to follow. They're not exact, but that's the gist of it.
That's the gist of it. But look, the main thing of what we're talking about to guys today is the top being a tenant and the benefits of being a tenant and staying a tenant. They are clear. They are there. That's why, I think a lot of people poo-poo people to being tenants. They should buy. Not the case. Sometimes it just doesn't work. I'll give you an example. I rented our first offices for 15 years. I was a tenant. And the reason why I was a tenant is because when I went into the original office, I was 23. I didn't have the money to buy a commercial property. Another reason I stayed so long in there is it was just so hard to find a commercial property that suited what we needed. It was, literally an absolute, very, like, the level of difficulty was 10 out of 10. So until we got the right one, we stayed where we were. But here's the point. Here's the kicker. I continued to make investments along the way. That's what tenants should be doing. That's the message out of today. Stay a tenant. Be a great tenant. Enjoy being a tenant, but make your investments along the way. Make sure you're putting a little bit away for a rainy day.
Yeah.
And it's tax-free and there's negative gearing.
Yes, perfect. And Mark, good to see you've joined on. Lisa, Brett, how are you? Anything else you want to add on to that, Mark, or is that a wrap for episode 222?
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, dude. That's 222.
Yeah, 222.
Sick.
Renting is cool.
It's cool. But look, that's the main thing, guys. And also share this knowledge. I'm not saying share the post, but share this knowledge with people, because I reckon it's cliche. Probably one of the top 3 mistakes I see people make. So I've been in the real estate agent for 25 years. People come to me and want advice. This would be a piece of advice that I would share with someone to say, guys, it's okay to rent, but just make sure you're running that little sausage on the side. And these days with first home buyer incentives, these days with how banks are, towards first home buyers and friendly, with no stamp duty, with 5% deposits, you have got rocks in your head to be a tenant that doesn't own a property. Yeah. If you are a tenant that doesn't own property and have to take advantage of those benefits are there, you better have a bloody good investment on the side. Guys, we need to have investments on the side. I know Luke's big about this. Luke Moroney, who's watching as a buyer's agent.
Rent vesting is his word. I like that. Rent vesting.
Rent vesting. It's very, very important. Stay as a tenant. That's cool. But please make sure you've got your investment for your future. Superannuation simply isn't enough. To have a property or maybe stocks or something on the side while you are a tenant for 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 years, that's great. Look, I know, Aussie John Simons.
Yep.
He only bought his place to live in about 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
For the first 30 years of his business, he was a tenant.
Yeah.
But he made his investments on this. Like, this is a super clever guy. He made his investments on the side. He actually, I remember reading an article in the paper saying he always found it much cheaper for luxury property. And you're talking properties worth 10, 20, 30 million. It was much cheaper to actually rent them and have them maintained by the landlord than to actually buy them. But he still made his business investments and property investments on the side. That's my point.
Yeah. Perfect. That's the take. Thank you, everyone. Back tomorrow morning.
Love ya. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks, Michael.